Hello, my name is Dan Wright, and I believe that many of the ideas holding our society together are illusions, and I'm here to expose, question, and rebuild them with truth. Today, we're talking about a popular TikToker called Ben South, who has gone on radio to say, in plain terms, a man with two wives, multiple wives, get to benefit more than a man with one wife. And he explained his point with the Bible. So I have some notes I've made on here. If you see me looking down, I'm making reference to it. So what did Ben South say? I like Ben South. I watch his videos. He's very funny. It's nothing to attack his personality in person. It's just had to do with the whole thought of Ghanaian men, of African men in general, and how we don't even see that this line of thinking does more harm to us than good. And it's high time we move away from the thinking or the practice of polygamy in itself. I am an advocate for banning polygamy anyways. So let's dive into it and see what he said in general. So this is Ben South's claim. He says that men with one wife face problems, while those with two don't. Claim number one. The Bible shows that polygamous men lived better, longer, and happier lives. Having two wives creates competition, making them level up. So in short, he argues in that particular interview that polygamy benefits men emotionally, spiritually, and socially, while monogamy causes conflict. Okay, so now let's go into the Bible and try to understand. Probably Ben South has discovered something that we might not know. So let's go into the Bible. So to answer Ben South, let's go and look at God's original design for marriage. Genesis chapter 2 verse 24, God's original design. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. One flesh. Notice not many flesh. Let's look at examples of characters in the Bible who had multiple wives and those who had single wives. Polygamous man number one. We have Abraham, Sarah plus Hagar, right? Now, if we look at the outcome here, it was deep division, it was jealousy, it led to the exile of Hagar and Ishmael, which was his son. And you can reference this from Genesis chapter 16 and Genesis chapter 21. Jacob married Leah, he married Rachel, and he had many concubines. And what was the outcome? It was constant rivalry and resentment. The children fought bitterly amongst the women. And that was Genesis chapter 29 to 30. You can find this story there. Now let's look at David, who had multiple wives. What was the outcome? Lust led to adultery and murder. Family chaos also followed David as well. And you can find out in 2 Samuel 11 to 13. Okay, now let's look at Solomon. Men loved Solomon. Was it 300 wives, 700 concubines? I always get the number mixed up. But let's look at 700 wives, 300 concubines. Okay, so what was the outcome for Solomon? He turned away from God to idols. That's 1 Kings 11, 1 to 4. And now if we go and we look at Elkanah, who was Samuel's father, who married Peninnah. Jealousy and emotional distress in the home, that can also be referenced from 1 Samuel chapter 1 verse 6. So if you look at all the biblical characters and polygamy, this is not peace. This is not a family. I don't know about you, I would like to live in as a man with the constant confusion, the resentment, children fighting bitterly, turning away from God to idols. It doesn't look like the multiple women had a good influence, or so to speak, a positive influence on the man. Now let's go ahead and look at the New Testament, what it says about marriage. 1 Corinthians chapter 7 verse 2. So when even Christianity matured in the New Testament, the church in itself tried to move away from the whole polygamy kind of concept. 1 Corinthians 7:2. Each man should have his own wife, and each woman her own husband. 1 Timothy chapter 3 verse 2. A church leader must be the husband of one wife. So it is not prescribed. If we even go with the biblical terms and the example he makes, it doesn't show any sign that polygamy led to happiness, just as he vaguely backs his point with. But now let's even go deeper. Polygamy in a lot of ways is a cultural thing, and as men we don't want to accept it because it benefits us sexually. That is just the point. But then to raise a whole family, to be healthy, to be looked after emotionally, financially, and to take care of the children that will come out of the family, to a large extent properly take care of them, you would have to be present, you would have to be focused, you would have to dedicate your time to the family. And when most people mention taking care of the family or mention a man in general, in most contexts they just talk about the financial provision. And even in this case, and according to the setup we're in, the modern situations now, women are doing a lot more by contributing to the home. In most cases, they are contributing majority into the home. So you have to pick up other roles to supplement the home as the man, taking care of the kids, helping out in the home, and all these things. So to go ahead and say that multiple women sort of will check, or the rivalry between them will make them level up, it just exposes the fundamental in this thinking, which is just male ego and nothing more. Let's get into some of the notes I have here. When you marry one, she will fight you. When you marry two, they will fight for you. This kind of concept. This is not love. This is manipulation. You are not willing to invest emotionally into the person. So when anything comes up that causes you as the man to become accountable, then you deflect and you jump onto the next woman who is not demanding that much emotional depth from you as the man. And that is no way to live. So Ephesians chapter 5 verse 25, since he quoted the Bible, husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. This is a big one. When the Bible commands husbands to love the church, we are quick to look at the pretext that talks about women submitting to their husbands, and we always trumpet that women submit, but we have not paid attention to men, love your wives, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. And it goes on to say that he gave himself up for her. Now, if we look at the foundation of the love of Christ, he came from heaven not for himself, but to lay down his life and save humanity. In this case, the Bible is preaching the ultimate sacrifice to husbands. That as a husband, the emotional security of your wife, the financial security of your wife, the physical or health security of your wife rest upon you, with the ultimate sacrifice that if you have to give up your life to protect hers, you would have to. So it's not an easy road for you to just say you've married someone and you go on to marry someone else. It's not as easy as that. So why do men keep propagating polygamy and even defending it in this day? Right? I have some points here. Number one, it's fear of commitment to one woman's emotional depth. Most men have been trained to be superficial. When a woman holds them to account, you did something, honey, I didn't like what you did. I'm not happy. I didn't feel safe that you did this thing. I don't want this thing to happen again. Then instead of reflecting on what as a man probably I might have done that has triggered my partner, I tend to blame her and say that she's being too much. She's being too uptight or something. This was nothing. This is just one of those things. You take things too seriously. And so the next thing is that if she keeps on insisting on that particular thing, then you find the person in quote too much, and you deflect or you overcompensate by going in for someone who quote unquote will give you what you call peace. But that is not peace anyways. It's just you refusing to take accountability for your actions, tuning into the emotional depth of the woman to say, okay, I did something that made my partner feel insecure. I did something that made my partner upset, and the right thing to do is to apologize and try as much as possible not to repeat that again. Because men refuse to take accountability for some of these things, they would rather deflect and jump onto the next woman who would not require these things from them, basically. And that is what keeps on being perpetrated over and over and over. The second thing is seeking validation or dominance. And this is a big thing. So we have come from a place where having multiple women were seen as a sign of status. The problem is that is not the case again. And African men like myself are not willing to let that go. We have moved from the hunting and gathering stage, where one person was the alpha, the strongest among the team, hands going for food. We have moved from that stage where tribes banded together under the strongest, and he led the charge to conquer other tribes and try to establish a kingdom or whatever it is. We are in the intellectual age where, irrespective of strength, man or woman can thrive. If you even look at the numbers, women are doing much more in the academic space compared to men at the moment. Simply holding on to the validation and the dominance of having multiple women will not cut it. If I'm to use myself as an example, I don't see someone who has multiple men as someone who has status. To me, I see someone who has multiple men and all these things as someone who lacks inhibition, someone who lacks self-discipline, and someone who is afraid to commit on an emotional level and on a deeper level with a partner. Because most of these relationships are going to be superficial. It's not just enough to even provide financially if you can. That is not the prerequisite to have multiple women in your fold. And at the end of the day, if you speak to these men, they will tell you that they are not happy. There are loads and loads of examples that I can make. Finally, him using biblical examples to justify personal desires, that will not wash. In conclusion, this argument of polygamy benefiting men as compared to monogamy is just not true. It basically rests on male insecurity and ego. If you commit to a woman, ultimately you commit to her physical well-being, her financial well-being, spiritual well-being. There is much more you can gain from that relationship, emotional depth, satisfaction, than just having multiple women and connecting on that superficial level. So yeah, hope it answers the question. And obviously this is an illusion, and I've presented you with the truth.